Welcome to the No Name Brand Podcast. My name is Sashka Hanarapal, actress, singer, dancer, turned brand marketing, sales, and advertising strategist who brands your soul. And each week I bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover your underdog, turn up your leadership notches, challenge the status quo, because you're fast and furious with a powerful message to share with the world. Thank you for taking time out with me today, and without further ado, let's get our creative and wisdom juices flowing. So today's episode is about to become ultra spiritual. Our next guest is an emotional healing coach, international teacher, world traveler, and curious student of life. There's an ultra spiritual lesson for you right there. To be a curious student in life. So don't be a smartass and think you know everything. Ding, ding, ding. He also makes videos to help people help themselves using humor when the serious stuff doesn't click with your limiting beliefs. Because we all know laughter is the best medicine to heal anything, even a wasp sting. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming our next ultra spiritual and ultra funny guest. Here he is, JP Sears.
Well, hey there, sister. Thank you for having me on and giving me such a wonderful, emphatic introduction.
It's a huge pleasure. I like to boost the ego every now and again. It's always good. Just every now and again.
Mine tends to have an infinite capacity to be boosted.
I don't think you're alone, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Amen today.
But oddly enough, my ego wishes I was the only one so I could be more significant. But I think ultimately you're right. I'm not the only one.
So I first want to know, me personally, what does JP stand for? Jesus Persona? Jeepers Poloni?
No, just perfect. They named me after my essence. And then
that one coming.
An alternative, it stands for Jonathan Patrick.
Oh, Patrick. That's real Irish. I think that was a Scots accent, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm ignorant enough. I don't know the difference. And yeah, my mom's whole side of the family is Irish. So you're
wow.
right on the money there, where the roots of my middle name Patrick come from.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. Man. Hey, and tell us, where are you in the world today, or where are you on your way to, or what's happening?
Yes, as of right now, I'm in Costa Rica, specifically Manuel Antonio, Costa Rica. I've been here for a month. I'll be here for another month from here as well. I'm at my lovely lady Amber's place. Her and I split time between her house in Costa Rica and then my house on the east coast of the U.S. So yeah, I finished the last leg of my book tour, kind of like the last leg of my second book tour. I think it was like 5 cities in 7 or 8 days. So a lot of travel, a lot of busyness, but wonderful. And then it was nice to just kind of spit myself out and land in Costa Rica and be able to have a nice exhale or two with my lovely lady.
Oh, just doing a bit of fart-assing around.
That's...
To put it bluntly.
I need more fart-assing. That's definitely true.
Cool. So I'm all about brand leadership and no-name brand podcast naming. So I want to go into brand leadership. So for those listening, one of the most prominent tools that you can have is write a book. I mean, you either write it yourself or you get a ghostwriter. Gary Vee says, I'm not writing my book. I have someone write it for me because I don't like reading. Well, tell us about your book. Your book is called, I have to read this, How to Be Ultra Spiritual, 12 and a half steps. So not 12, not 13, not 12.0, 12 and a half steps to spiritual superiority. Love that. How long did it take you to write? Were you approached? Was the seed already planted? Tell us about how it's been going.
It was May 2015. Wow, that seems so long ago.
It did? Yeah, really?
2 years ago, I started to be approached by publishers. And as flattering as that sound is and was, that basically means publishers see you as a potential pawn in their business game. And to me, the idea of writing a book, it hadn't really crossed my mind until I started to get approached. I always had in the back of my mind, like, yeah, when I'm an old man sitting by a fireplace in a cabin, I'll write a book. But it had never, I'm almost ashamed to say this, it had never crossed my mind to write a book from a comedic perspective. So when the publishers were saying, like, that's what we're interested in, like, it just just felt like an exciting idea, like scary too, like writing a book. I've never done that. How can I write a book? Like I'm probably not smart enough to write a book.
Oh, we like that
I
one.
might be able to squeeze out 3 pages. I instantly became like a 10-year-old in grade 4 who's told like, you have to write a 2-page paper. And I was like, wow, it's going to ruin my whole weekend. So I don't like to make decisions based on what I think. I like to make them based on how I feel. So it just felt like an exciting and, like I said, scary project, but my heart was saying yes. I dove into it. The writing process was 2.5 months for me. And so a legit book. It's 250-page book. It's not just like, here's a bunch of pictures and then a little bit of filler text. So 100% put my heart and soul into it. And my reason for doing the book is maybe different than a typical brand awareness piece of advice, which is great advice. But my reason was different. There was the artistic appeal to me, like the creative idea of it lit up my heart. And that was my reason for writing the book. I consider myself one of the least strategic people I know. If someone were to look at what I do online and see like good strategies, I promise you they're all implemented by accident without intelligent design. I do things, like I said, that are based on the guidance of my heart. Like, this feels good, this feels exciting. And some of them turn out like, oh, in hindsight, that kind of looks strategic. Cool. But I don't like to implement, personally, I don't like to implement strategies for strategy's sake. And I know that makes me sound a little bit like cliche eccentric artist. Yet I think I'm a little bit of a cliche eccentric artist. I definitely identify much more as a creative. I feel like my purpose is to create and to connect. The idea of marketing and brand building is just so necessary, but so unexciting for me. So now as I've got some upcoming projects in the pipeline where I realize like it's just ridiculously stupid for there not to be those strategies. So that's when I'm like now in the process of bringing the people onto my team where their genius, their passion, and their heart is lit up through the strategy side. And I realize you asked me about my book and here I am digressing.
That's perfect because I got a gazillion questions going ding, 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 but this. But tell us about the book first. I'm going to take off my hat now.
Yeah, the book, it's my comedic take on the new age spiritual cultures, specifically my satirical take. That's just my brand of comedy where through the lens of humor, I shine the light on the shadow of where a lot of us in the new age world, the self-growth world, can lose ourselves while we trick ourselves into believing that we're finding ourselves. So I use the language of comedy to, one, entertain and give people laughs, but two, and probably more importantly, I use the language of comedy to deliver deeper messages for consideration so that people can truly have a better, more meaningful life and rethink how they think about life. So that, to me, the book feels very, very satisfying. Like it was a win before it was even released and anybody read it. It was a win because the journey was enjoyable and the message and how the message was packaged with the comedic delivery. It just created so much inner fulfillment in me.
I'm amazed that it took 2.5 months. It is like super ultra fast. Like, were you meditating while everything's flowing out of you? Just like it's happening.
I just sat under a tree and I didn't even have a pen or a paper or a computer or typewriter. It just literally manifested itself. I was definitely deliberately not in a rush to write it. The book, it was, if you believe in deadlines, the deadline of the publisher, I think I was basically like 4 or 5 months ahead of schedule. So there was like zero rush. I just got into a creative flow where I found a rhythm and a pace that worked for me, where I was for an hour and a half every day consistent with writing. And it was like first thing in the morning. I just built my schedule that way. So my first hour and a half, once I wake up, do a little morning routine, is writing. That way, like it's literally impossible for me to put it off, make excuses, just like, okay, I'm going to be consistent to the writing. And whether I write a paragraph, 8 pages, crappy paragraph, like I'm just writing for an hour and a half. And that worked for me because typically what I'd find is after an hour and a half of writing, I wanted to write more.
Cool.
So I found like staying hungry to write more, like ending a session there was such a good idea. I never got burnt out. I imagine the idea of like doing a 5-hour, 8-hour writing session. And that sounds like awesome, like accomplish a lot. But then it's like, yeah, I'd probably be burnt out and not want to write again for 2 weeks. So it just so happened to be like I pretty quickly stumbled into this hour and a half every day. I was hungry. I was excited to wake up the next morning. And it's like when I'd go to bed at night, it's like I want to hurry up and wake up in the morning. And I loved that. And nothing good just instantly manifests. Most good things, especially like big projects, they take a lot of steps to create. And saying this, what we already know, but I'll say it anyway, being consistent is how those projects get done. They will not get done any other way. So just the hour and a half consistency just turned out like, okay, 2.5 months apparently was how long that took to write.
You're walking the talk. So you definitely a curious student of life, because I don't know anything about writing, but just bring it on because I can learn something new, just whatever. And all the words are just float. Were you given questions to answer? Was there an outline? Were you given book coaching, so to speak? So to say, okay, we'll go according to this, do this, highlight this.
Yeah, I was given 0 book coaching. And in hindsight, I so appreciate that. So the publisher I decided to go with is Sounds True Publishing, and they're just amazing. And one of the reasons why I went with them is like, one, like, yes, just like any other publisher, they saw me as a good business opportunity. Most of all, they really value my work, and therefore they really value me as the creator of my work. So they were so uninterested in guiding the book. They were like, what you do, so we want you to do what you do.
Cool.
And that was liberating and also at the same time scary. It's like, okay, go do something that you don't know how to do. We're not going to tell you how to do it. And if they did tell me how to do it, I'd probably just like, don't tell me what to do. How dare you try to control my creative process? What I did do is I created a book outline, like super simple book outline. Here's chapter titles. And then I'd have maybe between 3 and 5 just simple one-line bullet points after each chapter title. So I think in all, it was a very simple outline, yet it was enough structure for me to launch into the mystery of what the book was to be. And of course, along the way, a lot of the outline gets changed, like some of the chapters never came to be, and then there's just new ones that come to mind, and some of the bullet point items for each chapter, it's like, here's the chapter, those bullet points don't fit in. But I can't say enough about how that simple outline was a structure to jump off of. It's hard to jump off of something if you don't have something to jump off from. It's like why people go to the top of a mountain to hang glide, like they need something to jump off of, but not entrap them. So an outline that's just like so detailed and thorough, to me, that would be maybe a prison. Is like, how can I be creative here? Because like this first thing is like impairing more creativity. And I would imagine each and every one of us, for whatever our creative process is, will have a different balance of like how much structure is good for support versus how much structure then encages us and limits us.
Are you one of the people, I'm one of those that are more learning by doing? Like when someone tells me do this, I'm like, no, going that way.
Yeah, I'm definitely a learner by doing. And I love learning. And to me, the best things to learn are the ones that make us uncomfortable. Otherwise, we might be learning something new intellectually, but if we're not getting to some degree of like psychological and physical discomfort, then we're not really learning anything new at a wisdom level or a heart level. So and to me, like the best learning happens when we don't know we're learning, like when we're actually doing something. It's like, oh, I'm doing this thing right now. And that's what I associate with. I'm doing this thing. But in all, like I'm learning way more by like attempting to do this thing than I would if I was sitting down in a hypnotic trance, like, let me learn about that thing that I'm not doing right now. It's like, I think nature has so much wisdom to teach us. And if we look at the nature of a young child, like let's say it's 12 months old, when it's learning to walk, it's like doing the thing it doesn't know how to do. And yes, it's awkward, like because that's the learning phase, but no child sits down with a textbook and says, let me learn about how to walk. It's like, no, they're too wise for that. They said the best way for me to learn is to do what I don't know how to do.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm with that. They say that we have 3 peaks in our lives. The first peak is our vocational, and the second and third peak, we're very lucky if we reach it. You've come to you're an emotional healing coach, so started off as a life coach in inverted commas. And most of your videos, so in 2014 is when the first comedy videos came out. So before that, you were more talking to end consumers, so really people that are having life problems. And then you switched it to taking the mickey out of life coaches, so to speak, mixed with life coach terms and stuff like that. You've come to quite a peak, like the book's been there, and I'm sure life has kind of changed a little bit with opportunities that you wait for them and you expect them, and then when they're there, you're kind of like, whoa, it's here now. Is that what's happened like with you? And what's next? What's coming next? Do you know what's coming next? Can you feel what's coming next? Because what's the next peak, like with our purpose?
Yeah, I love that. Hearing you say the word peak, it with all pretend humbleness acknowledge, like I do feel very blessed to have this sensation, like, yeah, you feel like I'm at a peak. This is wonderful. Things are happening in my life like I never actually imagined. And I mean that in a good way. Like my imagination wasn't good enough to imagine a lot of the great opportunities that have come my way as a result of the exposure from the comedy videos, but also the inner fulfillment that I get from doing what I do. I didn't imagine that either. So life has changed in many regards. Part of how it's changed is literally what I do. About 6 months ago or 7 months ago, I officially gave up my one-on-one client practice. For 15 years before that, it was my one-on-one client practice is my main thing. But I was getting the call to let it go. It's easy to let a bad thing go, but hard to hear the message to let go of a great thing. But that season had passed. The idea of, a big thing that's changed is how many people pay attention to me. In the past, before the spotlight came through the videos, I was teaching classes. So it's like, wow, I might have 50 people looking at me for this class. And that's like really cool. Like it honestly is a thrilling experience and a great blessing. But now it's like, wow, I've had some videos that get more than 50 million views just on that video. So it's like, wow, there is a massive amount of attention on me mostly the videos that I do. So that's really weird when I think about it. Like, it's just a little discombobulating, like just considering, like, what does that mean? Not really from an ego sense, but more of like, yeah, wow, what's the purpose of that and why me? And then like another big thing that's changed is like how valued I feel by other people. And that's not to just be completely codependent, like I now value myself because other people value me. It's like, no, how I feel about me is different than how they feel about me, but just seeing other people value me, whether it's people watching my videos, buying my book, people messaging me, companies wanting to work with me, it's a great thrill and honor, big change. And then as far as what's next, it's a good question. I think some of what's next is allowing what already is to continue to evolve. So continuing to do videos about how I do them and what I do them about, that's wanting to evolve. And I think that evolution has started. I started my comedy videos basically just doing material in the spiritual new age realm. And I think it would feel like suffocation if I kept myself there. So yeah, I think it was like end of last year, I started to venture outside of that realm, and that feels good. It's like, yeah, there's human issues like everywhere that need to be addressed. And when my creative muse inspires me, it's like I want to go there, not restrict myself because I've pigeonholed myself to just be the spiritual guy. It's like, screw that. Nobody can hold me in that corner other than me. And then I think another dimension of what's next is more live performances. Been doing a lot of speaking at different conferences and events, and then putting on shows for book promotion. And then I think part of how that will change into what's next is just more full-on touring for the sake of doing comedy and authenticity for people. So that really excites me. I love expressing creativity and connection through videos And there is something just way more three-dimensional being in person, working with a live audience rather than just video. It's two very different things. And honestly, I think the live version lights me up more. I really quite enjoy that. So I definitely there will be more of that. And then, as far as what else is next, I would say probably the most exciting parts of what's next are the things I'm not aware of. I love to be open to mystery. I love to be curious rather than having a delusional sense of certainty and saying no to everything that doesn't match the fingerprint of those things I've premeditated. So yeah, I want to be open to the mystery of what else is next.
I want to hear your take on this. I usually see it when I do a lot of research for success. What happens with success is when we're going through life, whether you're in a business or acting or artist or whatever, if we have pyramid or triangle going down, at the top, we have our message and idea or dream, whatever, and it's all exciting and you think, I've nailed it. And you're working your way down and suddenly the pyramid flips up and you realize you're at the bottom. And what's happening is that your message is changing.
Yeah.
And not just your message, your purpose, what you thought you loved, what you thought was going to be the be-all, end-all in your life, suddenly becomes smaller and it starts peeling away, and it's like that pinnacle or that peak starts coming, man, there's my higher self. I'm coming towards that person that I really, really want to get to know. Like, that's who I really am. How do you see that?
Yeah, I see that as freaking amazing blessing. And to me, it's like unnerving and scary, unsettling when we realize like, wow, my purpose isn't what I thought it was. And usually I think we have to struggle a long time before we can even come to those terms. Like, purpose and mission isn't what I thought it was. And like why I'm doing what I'm doing is changing. I think to our ego, we call that scary. To our spirit, we call that growth. I think we all are bigger than we think we are. I think we're also more powerful than we think we are. So the idea that, let's just say 10 years ago, the idea that we have it all figured out, here's my purpose, here's what I meant to do, that's like being confined to what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were 5 years old. Like, what if that never changed? That would be horrible. We'd all be cowboys or mermaids. Like, whatever you want to be.
Garbage
man. Yeah, it's like, I want to be a garbage man because that truck's awesome. Sometimes garbage men, you have a thing you should be doing. But yeah, to me, the saddest situation is when we repel growth out of our own dogma to be what we thought we should be. And I think the person who we thought we should be, the person who we want to be, has very little to do with who we actually are. And with self-realization, I think the more we realize who we actually are, the more we have this amazing situation where we realize, no, I'm at the bottom of the pyramid. I have infinite room for growth, and damn it, infinity is always bigger than I think it is. So I thought I was at the top, and when we shed a layer of self, when we shed a layer of who we're not, that's who we thought we were, but it's not, so we shed it, then we have a deeper connection to who we actually are. Still a hell of a lot more room to go with it, but when we have that layer of not self shed, we have a better understanding of who we are, and therefore we get to see how little we have figured out, and we get to be the humble student of life where we don't so much define our purpose, but we listen to our purpose and discover that rather than egotistically creating it.
That's true. That's true. I'm writing a book about that. So when it's done, I'd love to send it to you. Yeah. How about the purpose and just how important our dreams are, not having to become anything that we've actually dreamed of becoming. That it's a clue to our life purpose. But when it's done, I'll send it over. I think it's quite mind-blowing.
You better think so. And I'd love to read it. I think that's a wonderful message. And a little preview of your book, I'm curious, how is it for you when you think you've been climbing the pyramid, and you have, but then you have the realization of it being flipped and you look up and it's like, wow, why I'm doing what I'm doing is different than I thought. And you have so much more room to go than you thought. Like, what's that like for you?
I don't see the room at the top. I'm already there because I've gone through so much epiphanies just happening around me. So Steve Jobs just says, join the dots looking backwards. Yeah. And that's what I've been doing. And just seeing, I've always been like this, just chunking down everything, challenging the status quo. My mother said to me, why do you always have to question everything? Why don't you just leave it? And I was like, I can't, because there's answers. It's like Indiana Jones finding the Holy Grail. Yeah. So for me, it's finding these little bits and pieces and see everything matrix, lots of patterns everywhere. And then I can see, okay, for me, my purpose has always been there. It's just never been in a word form or sentences. So it's always been there. And for me, it's the golden thread that goes through everything. Every decision I make, every peak that I'm going to be reaching beyond my vocation now, there's a higher peak as well. It's got nothing to do with business. It's got more to do with the human being side. Like you said, the three-dimensional side. We need that. We need that contact. And my second peak is going towards children, working with teenagers. It's always been there. But I needed to learn lots of other stuff first, and all the emotional healing.
So when the peaks that you're talking about, and I know you mentioned a few minutes ago, are those peaks you associate then with essentially evolutions of your purpose?
Yep. Just take Wycliffe Jean, for example. I mean, he's a musician, and his next peak was then president of Haiti. And what's the next peak going to be? I mean, it's got nothing to do with being a musician, but there's so many different peaks to reach. Well, the three, and we're lucky if we reach the three. We first have to get over that first one. So it's like, oh my God, I want to go over there, but I got to get over this one first.
Yeah, I like that. And I think when we look in the music world, and this is like really using the micro, I think analogize this macro of the potentially three peaks in life. I think sometimes, well, not sometimes, we all know of musicians that were one-hit wonders. Like they have one peak song, but no follow-up. I think one of the reasons for that is like we become traumatized. Trauma might be a harsh term for this, but we become traumatized when we peak. And then like by definition, there's a drop-off after the peak. There's a letdown. Like in a relative world, of course, like the peak flow state you get when you're just letting the purpose come through you and the inner satisfaction that's brought with that. Like it sucks when that's gone. And I think we can become defended unconsciously and say, kind of like write a program with ourselves that basically says in the computer of our brain, don't peak again because we want to avoid pain. And we peaked last month. Pain followed. So the mantra of our defended ego becomes avoid that pain. And we associate, well, the peak is what brought the pain on. So let me avoid peaking again. So in other words, and also I won't have to live in the fear of anxiety of, can I do it again? Can I do it better? Let alone I get to avoid the pain of the letdown that came with that. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of musicians become just the one-hit wonder. I don't think it's from lack of talent or creativity. It's like, no, they proved they could do the thing with their first hit. I don't think anybody's creative well runs dry with one bucket of water. And I know for me, when I wrote my book, I wouldn't necessarily consider my book a peak. It's maybe a boulder on top of a bigger peak, maybe. But I was depressed when I finished my book.
Wow.
Like there was definitely a letdown from it. And there was a week where I was like, I am depressed. And I was grateful because sort of like the insight came to me that said, let yourself be depressed. Like embrace the discomfort. Don't try to avoid it. I think trying to avoid it would inevitably wind up lending me much more prone to trying to avoid peaks, to avoid the discomfort that follows them because I'm still trying to avoid the discomfort from the last peak. And I think one of my favorite sayings ever is from an author named Brene Brown, who says, he or she who's willing to be the most uncomfortable is not only the bravest, but also rises the highest peaks. So I honestly think if there was one ingredient to success in terms of both outer achievement, but also really inner fulfillment, it is be willing to feel discomfort.
With the musicians, you made lots of good points in there. Ding, 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 ding. All the little points are going. Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Brooke Shields, all the one-hit wonders that they had. They got into that marketing thing. So it was all, this is what you're going to present. And then they get to the peak and then drop out because it's like, I don't know who I am. Who am I?
They're bigger than who they were with that first peak.
Yeah. And then comes, I don't know who I am. And then when they break through the mold, then the whole media is like, oh my God, that's not how I thought you genie in the bottle. That is just too sexy for me. And it's like, well, that's who I am. I am sexual. And I love that part of me. And then people have to get used to it. But not what people say. It's just true what gets said. Believe in yourself first and not to worry about what everyone else says. Because the discomfort is that we first see, does everyone else believe in me before I believe in myself?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that can be a horrible trap when we're trying to look, does everybody believe in me? When they do, then I'll believe in me. But they won't believe in us because they see us not believing in us because we're inherently looking for them to believe in us first. So it's like, I can never believe in myself because nobody believes in me because I don't believe in me. I 100% agree with you. A little testimony to that. When I'm in my creative process for a video, for instance, I do my absolute best best to be very disconnected from what I think other people will think. I do my best to be for those creative hours, in a monogamous relationship with a creative muse where it's just her and I. And to me, the creative muse is very much it's a symbol of an internal aspect of myself. So it's a very inward process where there's inherently belief in myself or belief in whatever lives through me. I've definitely made some videos where I was focused on what's going to make people laugh, what will get good views. And like those videos, they maybe come out okay, but they're definitely not my best work, because it's like for those videos, it's essentially I'm trying to get other people to believe in me rather than just being here in the monogamous relationship with my creative muse, which is an atmosphere of self-belief.
I love that. You are 100% a visionary. It's like, I don't see anyone else. I've got the blinders on, Steve Jobs category. It's just like, I need to just do this. And it's inherent within you. It's not something that you've learned. It's just in you to want to just move forward and not get your message out. You just want to live and breathe what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got to get this out. It can't stay within me, and
Yeah.
not caring about everyone else.
Yeah, to me, it's very much like when you need to exhale oxygen, or I guess it's exhaling carbon monoxide or dioxide, one of those bad ones. Like, we need to exhale that. We do. If we don't, we're not breathing. So to me, creativity and self-expression, and that can look like a million different things for a million different people. But when we're not creating, at least I'll speak for me, when I'm not creating, it's like holding my breath. I'm not exhaling. I need to respirate in this thing called life. Just like
Oh, I love it. You've been saying a lot of content, and I just wanted to ask something. We all have this perception of you and the listeners. Oh, JP, the comedian, and he does have his serious side, and you've gone away from the one-to-one. Not now. It's kind of like transitioning more into kind of like live speaking and liaising with people. What's the message there? Because a lot of people then come to, I know for myself, when I've seen a lot of comedians online and you watch their shows and you think, oh, when I go watch their show, it's going to be so amazing. You get there and you're going, but that's not what you were saying over there.
No.
Is there a different message, or you're transitioning into a different message, or for live?
This is a good question. I think it's the same message, just expressed in a bit of a different way. To me, if I were to summarize my message, it's a message of have more self-awareness and more connection with yourself, period. And some of my material is about shining the light on what gets in the way of that, what blinds our self-awareness, what disconnects us from ourselves. I think really it all boils down to those two things, self-awareness and self-connection. And with comedy, it's like it plants the seeds of awareness. Because typically, to make someone laugh, you tell them something that's essentially true that they don't know. There they are laughing. If you tell them something true that they already know, they'll either not laugh or they won't laugh as much. So there's self-awareness. If you're making people laugh, you're probably helping them become more self-aware. And then with comedy, also pointing out issues of self-disconnection. Like, for instance, tomorrow I'll be filming a video called How to Get More Addicted to Your Phone. And I think the way many of us relate to our phone is a way of self-disconnection. So I'll be highlighting all the ways we do that and the psychological pain avoidance phenomenon, feeling avoidance phenomenon that drives us to disconnect from ourselves with the crowbar of our phone. And then also, I think a part of the package is comedy gets people's attention where they might then be open for a more direct, sincere message that goes deeper, a deeper, sincere message of self-awareness or self-connection. So again, I think it's the same message, just expressed a bit differently. You know, how I am on video is certainly going to be a bit different than how I am in person with an audience. Even if I'm like doing the same material, how I'm doing it is different, because video it's like that's a canvas, but being with a live audience, that's different. It's like a different art form. It might be music. So it's like, okay, painting and music, they might both be expressing the same message, that musical piece and this painting piece, but the means that it's expressed or the ways that they're expressed are maybe a little different.
Comedy is amazing. Do you know Trevor Noah, the South African comedian who does the Daily Show?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. You're very similar in the satirical, funny, push your button kind of like, oh, did he just? No, that's actually quite funny. But but should I? I don't know. Oh, but that's really funny. And it's on the same kind of border. And I love it because it really gets your mind that you're really pushing the envelope without actually hurting someone's feelings or emotions or making them feel bad about themselves. You're just making them, like you say, self-aware. Oh, I'm actually quite a douchebag.
And now I can do something about it.
Exactly.
And now I can look at why I'm a douchebag, which is more the heart of the matter. It's like, don't shame yourself for being a douchebag. Realize we're all a douchebag. It's
exactly.
how you express your douchebag essence.
Exactly.
Why you're that way, I think, is so we can get to that inner stuff. And I really appreciate the comparison to Trevor Noah. That's a very flattering comparison. And I think with comedy, there's so much that comes down to intent. What is the comedian's intent behind the comedy? Because we all know that comedy can be used to hurt. Like, you can get laughs from hurting people. That's called bullying. Yeah. Even though a lot of times in the comedy world, we might use a different term, but like, you can be a bully and make people laugh. So you can be out to hurt, or you can be out to help. You can be out using comedy, satirical comedy, as a knife cutting through the psychological scar tissue that we all carry, so that we can expose something more real. And like that cutting, that when we're cutting through the scar tissue, like that can be like unnerving, like, I guess I am a douchebag. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel good, but it's helpful.
Yeah.
If that means, rather than having there be a joke that's delivered that's like, oh, that hurts, and it only hurts, but I'm laughing to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love comedy. I mean, does comedy come naturally to you when you're writing your skits? Because I joined Masterclass with Steve Martin. Because I was like,
how is that? I've seen that online.
Oh, I love it. He's hilarious.
Oh, cool.
Because it's like most visionary, creative people. I mean, you've explained it before, so I'm just going to repeat it over here because I don't want to repeat things that you've said regurgitated everywhere. You can't be the left hand without the right hand, so you can't be serious without being funny. And it's the same thing. And Steve does the same thing. And I'm just like, oh, yes, those are brilliant ideas. Why didn't I think of that? And then you realize it's actually in you. But you don't, because you don't do it daily, so you kind of, I forget it. So have you trained in it or done something, or is it just inherently in you?
Yeah, I haven't trained in it. I think it's mostly inherently in me. And I think why it's been activated in me is because comedy is how I dealt with pain as a kid. I didn't know how to be vulnerable, and I definitely didn't give myself permission to cry because in my family, you're weak if you cry. So when I'd have feelings of insecurity or insignificance, which were all the time, so that I wouldn't have to feel them, I would just disconnect through the phenomenon of make someone laugh so I can feel significant because I made them laugh. And here I am feeling significant on the surface, which distracts me from feeling insignificant on the inside. So in a way, my whole childhood was training with comedy because I just thousands and thousands and thousands of times, I have no idea how many, it was read a person, figure out what's going to make them laugh. It was like step one. And then step two is deliver it in a way that'll make someone laugh. So there's like, it's like my child self trained me in like the twofold process of figure out what will make someone laugh. And number two is how can I deliver that in a way that will make them laugh.
It's so amazing. We have similar childhood. It's pretty interesting. I didn't know I was doing it though. So just listening to you, I'm like, hang on.
Yeah, there's no question. I didn't know I was doing it either. Just hindsight makes things look pretty clear.
Hey, so I've deliberately not asked you, tell us all about yourself and everything. So I have a question that I'd like you to enlighten us with, and it's all about vulnerability. One of my favorite books and authors is also Brene Brown, Rising Strong, and she speaks about this. Yeah. In vulnerability, healing yourself, there's always a starting point where we heal ourselves. And if you don't know, if you do know, the wheel of life, whatever's there, I have 10 on my wheel of life areas. Some have only 8. Maybe there's more. I don't know. Where did you start with your healing of being vulnerable, of going, what is vulnerable? For me, it's being weak or showing my weakness. Sorry, not being, just showing my weakness, going, or giving into it and going, I'm allowed to. Being so strong all this time.
Yeah. For me, it was December 3rd, 2003. That was my starting point. It was the first workshop I took with a man who's since become a very powerful mentor, teacher, brother, and friend, a guy named John McMullen. And he's wickedly intuitive. So I was there in his workshop, like all arrogant, like I'm going to learn some things so I can help other people heal because I don't need it. With his intuition, he could just see things in me that I was very blind to. So he would pull it out of me with his questions. In the first afternoon of that first day of the workshop, I was in tears. I was just bawling my eyes out. And that was scary for me because like my sense of who I was being shattered. My sense of who I am to the world was shattered. My construct of the world was shattered because I was pushed into the pool of vulnerability. And that was amazing, like very unnerving, but very therapeutic. Probably the best thing for me. So not to say that I became a black belt in vulnerability right then. No, that's when I took my first karate class in vulnerability. And
White belt.
Yeah, white belt. So I'm still not even close to a black belt, yet I've been working on it ever since. So for the past 14 or so years.
14 years, 14 or so. Not bad, not bad. So
just dropping my year credentials. I'm 14 years into vulnerability. How far are you? Well, maybe not 14, I guess.
Yeah, so about 14, 15 years. So you're 35 now?
36 now.
36 now. Yeah. So you're 20s, in your 20s. That's pretty young to start with something so profound.
Yeah, I feel, everything happens in its right time. I get that. And given my timeline, I'm grateful that I stumbled my way into the influence of some very powerful mentors, very wise mentors when I was relatively young.
Love that. So we're coming near the end because I could talk forever, but the listeners can't listen forever. So I only have 2 ears and they can only concentrate so long. So I have 2 questions that I ask all my guests at the end of the show. And one of them is, how do you want to change the world or challenge the world doing what you do?
Yeah, I want to challenge the world to ask and consider the question, who am I really? Not who do you think you are? Not who do you want to be, but who are you really? If we can have curiosity that is pointed towards who am I really, I think our life is fast-tracked to a lot of meaning. But when we stay worshiping who we think we are or we worship who we want to be, to me, that's a way we disconnect from ourselves under the guise of nobility. And I think that to the degree that we're disconnected from ourselves is the degree that we don't feel meaning, purpose, and inner fulfillment in our life. So can we challenge ourselves to ask and embody curiosity about who am I really?
I love that. Curiosity. It's such a big thing. But that's another topic for another day.
I'm curious how big curiosity is.
Curiosity killed the cat. Hello, Mr. Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, but I think it enlivens the human spirit.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love you to fill in the gaps, your take on 3 of my key values. So creativity for you is?
Yes, an umbilical cord to something bigger than me.
Ooh, like that. Passion for you is?
Yes, that it's life energy.
Wisdom for you is?
Life experience.
Life experience, like that. So my alter ego is the Mad Hatter. Absolutely love him. I love going into fairy tale world. My favorite movie is Hook, and I have enjoyed so much meeting you, brother. It's been awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan Patrick Sears. Have you considered doing a hair shampoo sponsorship in Sears, grounded from head to toe?
Me and my team will be fielding offers from shampoo companies. In fact, I think that would be wonderful. But yeah, and it's been such a joy to be talking with you, sister.
Thank you so much. Be blessed. I honor you for taking your vision and making it real and just keep going on it and propelling and falling forward. Thank you so much. Enjoy your time with Ember. I was about to say Timber. No. Tongue twisted over there. Have a lovely time, and we look forward to hearing from you again and having you on the show again.
Sounds great, sister.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dang, that was just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I enjoyed having you on board, and please do me and you a favor. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Click subscribe, and a super bonus, leave your review and you stand a chance of being announced and advertised on the show. I'm always striving to ensure that your brand is uplifted and empowered. Remember, done is better than perfect. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send in your feedback too. You're the absolute best. Keep rocking.